Ish, a geologist who lived alone in a cozy house in the woods, enjoyed a quiet life. One morning, he set off for the quarry to search for pyrite, missing a call from his mother. While working, a snake unexpectedly bit his hand and slithered away. Startled, he fumbled for his phone but dropped it down the steep slope. He then used a knife to make a small cut on his hand and attempted to suck out the venom. He hurried back home, drank some water, and collapsed on his bed, soon becoming confused and disoriented. Hours passed, and Ish remained motionless, his hand now severely swollen. He is unable to move or speak, but he can hear a helicopter outside and someone hitting on his door. He gets out of bed in the evening to grab more water, but his clumsy motions cause him to spill it, forcing him to suck it from the floor. As he continues to call his mother, Ish receives a text from her that reads, "We love you." Ish wakes up several days later feeling better and his hand has returned to normal. After washing his car, he climbs in, but it takes a few tries to start. When Ish arrives in town, he's shocked to see that the streets are deserted. He finally stopped the car when he saw a dead body on the ground. There were military vehicles everywhere, and he saw more dead people inside other cars. On a road sign, he read that there was a global pandemic and that the US government has been suspended. The news report warned that the virus was very contagious and deadly, and that everyone must stay inside. When he finally reached his family home, Ish was heartbroken to find that his parents had both died. He cries for a time before burying his parents in the backyard and bidding them farewell with a kiss on the forehead. Ish sleeps in his boyhood bed before continuing his quest for the town. He then drives to the bridge after gathering a number of goods, including a rifle, only to discover it barricaded. Before turning onto another, equally empty road to Las Vegas, he lets out a frustrated yell. After failing to find anything in the buildings, Ish chooses to relax in a jacuzzi. He later gets a drink at a bar and spills it when he hears a voice frighten him. These are Anne and Milton, who explain that they became trapped here at the beginning and that they are immune. Ish discovers that the virus is fresh and that no one knows its origins after Milton plays the announcement on his phone. People were beginning to worry on the streets because vaccines were not working. The virus eventually overtook the country after the authorities lost control. Ish abruptly acknowledges that he didn't think the new illness was this terrible, even though his parents had warned him about it. There are likely only a few survivors like them in the world because Milton and Anne tell him that all nations fell. On a video chat, Anne admits to witnessing the deaths of her husband and daughters. Ish departs to use the elevator while the two continue to drink. But he finds he has nowhere to go and collapses on the floor. He discovers Anne putting on pricey store-bought clothing the following morning. Ish questions whether it matters to be alive, and Anne responds that just because her heart beats, it doesn't imply she is. When the three of them get together for breakfast, Ish finds out that Milton's wife passed away in this hotel. Anne exits the table in a rage as Ish says he's going to depart shortly. Milton uses the fact that they have food and a generator to try to persuade Ish to stay. He reveals to Ish that he and Anne have made a deal whereby they will self-delete when the food runs out. Milton questions why anyone would want to survive when all they cared about is gone, when Ish notes that the nation has enough resources to endure 10 years. Ish invites Anne to accompany him before departing. Ish had to push her away when she rejects him, but still gives him a kiss. Ish hears 2 gunshots as he leaves. Ish is so angry that he speeds down the road and nearly runs over a puppy, but he stops in time. He takes the dog, whom he calls Lucky, with him after interpreting this as a sign. Ish then makes a stop at the library and collects every survival book he can find. Ish returns to his former home to begin a new life with Lucky since he has run out of options. Ish is still alive a year later. He keeps himself occupied by exercising and doing housework, but he feels like he's losing it, and occasionally he drives his car in circles. He hears Lucky barking one morning and notices smoke in the distance outside the window. He takes the dog, whom he calls Lucky, with him after interpreting this as a sign. They return to town to collect supplies after Emma discovers that the rats have entered the pantry. They must ignore the foul smell emanating from the bodies and a few rats at the store. As the days go by, Emma and Ish establish a new routine. To gather food, they fish and grow veggies. Because no one is around to stop them, animals start to appear on the streets of the town. After getting a haircut from Emma, Ish begins constructing a chicken coop in the hopes of starting a farm. Intimacy eventually develops between them. Ish needs to start utilizing other cars in town to fill up his tank when his own car runs out of gas. On top of the home, he starts erecting solar panels. He unintentionally slides off the roof one morning and falls, injuring his ankle. Emma admits that she misses having more people around and helps him inside while tending to him. Later, as he sleeps, as soon as Ish recovers, he resumes construction. When Emma reveals she is expecting, Ish becomes terrified because he is afraid to have a child in a post-apocalyptic society. He searches the library for books on childbirth as rats are also scurrying around. After a few months, the couple's small farm is thriving, producing an abundance of veggies and even a few chickens. Ish agrees to go hunting after Emma explains that she needs protein. He locates a number of cows and, while apologizing, shoots one. He then cuts it according to a book's directions to extract the flesh, which he then transports home in a cooler. Emma breaks the good news by revealing that she has discovered a large mouse in the basement. Their traps aren't large enough for this size, so she had to drown it to kill it. Hundreds of rats have taken over the town and are now visiting their home, as can be seen by a quick glance through the window. When Ish notices that the rats are drawn to the rubbish, he quickly goes outside to burn everything while Emma shoots the rats that approach too closely. Regretfully, Ish also had to burn the cow's remains. The rats continue to come no matter what they do, so the two of them dash back inside and begin caulking every window, door, and crack. Emma also fills the toilet with a lot of bleach. They forgot Lucky outside, and he's getting bitten by the rats, as evidenced by a sudden sobbing sound. Ish is forced to open the door, hastily pick up the dog, and then dash back. Ish tries to open fire, but a couple rats manage to slip in the brief time it takes. Ish starts killing them all by violently crushing them with his gun after the bullet misses because they are always moving. Emma then tends to Lucky's injuries. Emma eventually admits that she gave birth to 2 daughters without any problems since Ish is terrified that he would lose her during labor. On the same day, the virus killed her entire family. After several months, the stray cats that prowl the streets have helped to bring the rat problem under control. At last, the couple may open the house and leave. Regaining hope for the future, Emma invites survivors to join them by painting their address on a wall in the community. A shadowy figure in the distance sees this. Ish is driving alone 6 years after the pandemic began when he unintentionally strikes a lion. As he reaches for his revolver and prepares to murder it out of mercy, he sees someone in the woods observing him. The girl tries to protect herself as he chases after her and tries to seize her. Ish takes a step back, says he doesn't mean any harm, and explains that he stays with other survivors and has food. She hops on the back of the truck after accepting the apple he hands her. It is revealed that Ish and Emma now have 2 children, Heather and Alex. In addition to Emma becoming pregnant once more, 2 additional survivors, Jorge and Maureen, have joined them. Ish believes the new girl must have PTSD. Despite everyone's friendliness, she still doesn't talk or get out of the truck. When Maureen brings breakfast the following morning, the girl is startled and drops the dish. Maureen reveals the scars on her chest to the child as she grips her wrist, pointing out that they are identical. Maureen then persuades the girl to take a bath after explaining how she and Jorge found this place via the sign. When Ish and Jorge venture into the woods in the interim, Maureen searches through the girl's possessions a short while later. A diary and a letter including numerous eerie illustrations reveal the girl's name is Evie. The girl reacts favorably to Maureen's use of the moniker. She even agrees to a room to sleep in and clean clothes. Maureen presents the letter to the others in the evening. The author, Evie's mother, pleaded with the reader to look after her daughter. When the pandemic began, Evie's mother was ill and unable to protect her, and her father vented his anger on her. Emma soon gives birth to Joey, a handsome baby boy. 1 year later, the gang is enjoying a pleasant day when the intruder warning abruptly sounds. Ish, Emma, and Jorge get their guns and head out to investigate after leaving the children inside with Maureen. They locate Molly, an armed woman, and everyone decides to lay down their weapons. They all agree to visit the house after Molly introduces them to her pals Jean, Ezra, and Rafe. Maureen learns that Jean is a well-known musician after more introductions. According to the group, they departed Oregon due to a flu outbreak. Ish is still wary even after Emma promises them they can remain in the house next door. Everyone gets together the following day to go get supplies. Ish is very stern while explaining the regulations, and all of the children are required to keep back. When Molly inquires about medication, Ish responds that it is completely depleted and that they should only eat. Ish instructs the others to ignore the buffalo in the street when they arrive in town. The gang disbands to search for food, but Molly defies orders and visits the hospital, where she discovers a number of repulsive corpses. Ezra finds Jean a guitar, and Jean grabs a bunch of alcohol. The group realizes Molly is gone when they get together to depart. Molly finds a stray dog at the hospital and scares it away with a fire extinguisher. She then breaks a lock with that same extinguisher, allowing her to access a backup supply of medication. Ish chastises her for disobeying the rules when she eventually returns. That evening, Ezra cracks a few crude jokes while Jean sings for everyone around a bonfire on her new guitar. They do the nasty for the first time after everyone has gone to bed, and Jorge tells Maureen about his best memory. Jean, meanwhile, becomes wasted in the kitchen. When Molly checks up on Jean the following morning, she confesses that she drank a lot because she was attempting to end her pregnancy. The gang continues to live in harmony as time goes on. Maureen soon gives birth to her own child. They still live together as a large family and celebrate Heather's birthday 14 years after the pandemic began. In an effort to share his passion for books with Joey, Ish frequently takes him to the library. Ish and Joey quickly head back home one afternoon after noticing that the wind is blowing fairly strongly and that it is starting to rain. After confirming that everyone is secure inside, they find Lucky has gone. When Ish searches for him, she's horrified to learn that Lucky has been murdered by a fallen tree. Emma quickly joins him. Lucky is buried in the garden the next day. A mountain lion unexpectedly emerges from the bushes while Ish is later watching the children play. The lion strikes Ish and starts mauling him after he orders the children to run and leaps in to save them. Evie starts screaming for assistance after years of silence. Ish is quickly rescued by the other adults, who then take him to the hospital. He leads the team to assist Molly with her injuries because she is a doctor. Emma, meantime, heads into the woods and, upon discovering the lion, retaliates by shooting it several times. When Ish eventually awakens, Molly acknowledges that she is merely a student who dropped out of college and is not a licensed physician. But Ish believes her expertise, and he soon regains his ability to walk, so he returns to his family. Joey has improved as a fisherman by the 17th year of the epidemic, and Ish is quite proud of him, which makes Alex envious. Rafe and Heather are mature enough to seek for supplies on their own. They quickly begin dating since they get along well. Both teenagers eventually express a desire to travel more, and following some deliberation, their parents grant them permission to do so. To be safe, the teenagers load up a car with weapons and supplies. Later on, Ezra observes that the plants are unusually dry for the season. Evie becomes so anxious that she destroys the handle of the kitchen faucet since she's unable to get water from it. The area is experiencing a drought, therefore a brief visit to the reservoir shows that the water is gone. Because they haven't been maintained, the pipes are also rusty and fractured. They will run out of water in just 1 week if it doesn't rain soon, and that's assuming they start rationing. The group quickly returns to the house as they notice 2 cars driving by. Charlie and Perry arrive outside the fence a few minutes later with a canteen full of water as a peace sacrifice. Charlie explains that his gang has been drilling wells ever since they discovered a drill outside of Nevada, and the 2 groups eat dinner together. Charlie begins digging after lunch when Ish offers to trade all of his extra fuel for a well. It will take about 72 hours to complete the entire process. Charlie and Ish go hunting together in the afternoon, and Ish is shocked when Charlie shoots him from behind in order to kill an animal. Charlie notes that his extensive practice, which extends beyond deer, is the reason he is an exceptionally skilled shot. Charlie flashes his scars and glances at Evie later at supper. Ish notes that she looks back with obvious discomfort. Alex believes his father is being unjust and disregards him when Ish instructs him not to assist Charlie with the drilling the following morning since he doesn't trust the man. Emma believes Ish is being overly paranoid when he tries to express his worries to her. Ish must see how Charlie's gang and his family get along to the extent that they sing together. Ish, feeling distressed and bewildered, decides to take a walk in the woods to decompress, but he gets lost. Charlie offers Jean his cigarettes that night, but she declines the alcohol. Charlie only backs off when Jorge leaves the house because he becomes quite aggressive. Emma begins preparing to go look for her husband since she's worried about him, but Ish returns just in time. When the drill reaches a sufficient depth the following day, water erupts from the earth. Charlie claims he likes this area more than he anticipated, but Ish instructs him to grab the fuel and go while everyone is celebrating. When Emma inquires about the next destination for her group, Perry responds that she is unsure because Charlie liked this place a lot. When Ish hears a lady yelling later that evening, he turns to see Charlie leaving Evie's cabin with his friend Silas standing guard. Perry is also upset with Charlie after he disregards Ish's worries and goes back to his RV. Evie is crying because Charlie took advantage of her while Ish arrives at the cottage at the same moment. Ish's family gets together to talk about how to handle Charlie. They have no choice but to kill him because they don't think they can simply send him away because he will most likely return. There is a dispute since some believe it to be self-defense and others believe it to be murder. Everyone agrees when they vote, with the exception of Jorge, who modifies his vote at Maureen's insistence. Ish strikes Charlie's skull with a hammer while the family envelops him for refusing. Ish keeps violently hitting Charlie's head until he dies when he falls. Ish goes crazy and keeps saying we had to, so Ezra had to stop him. Ish is reassured by Emma that he did what he had to do. Charlie's body is dumped into the ocean the following morning. Perry is informed by the family that although Charlie is no longer there, she and her group are permitted to remain. Perry realizes the true significance and is genuinely relieved that she is another one of Charlie's victims. When they tell the others that Charlie has left, Silas becomes irate and claims that Charlie never alters plans. Corey remarks that it's fortunate that Charlie is gone and that the rest of his group supports him while Ish's gang prepares their weapons in case Silas reacts. After calling them all cowards, Silas departs from the neighborhood. Ish informs Alex that Charlie is gone because he injured Evie when he leaves the house and inquires about him. The news doesn't sit well with Alex. Since he has nowhere else to go, Silas returns at that point and requests to stay. It's evident that the absence of people is helping Earth recover 20 years after the plague began. After putting in a lot of effort, Joey and Corey were able to construct a modified Da Vinci airplane. They plan to fly it shortly, but it requires some more adjustments. Alex is still envious, but everyone else is thrilled. Ish prepares a root concoction for Joey when he confesses in the evening that he isn't feeling well. But in the middle of the night, Joey enters his parents' room, drenched in perspiration, and abruptly faints. When Ish rushes to find Molly, he finds that Corey and the other members are also ill. Molly notes that this is happening too quickly to be a cold and speculates that it might be connected to the initial illness. Alex gets upset because he knows his father wouldn't be as concerned if he were the one who was ill. But Ish ends up spending the majority of his time sitting next to Joey. After a while, Heather returns, but she is by herself because Rafe passed away. She takes over a shift to watch Joey because she can tell her parents are exhausted. However, Joey doesn't get better no matter how many days go by, and Ish believes that God is punishing him for killing Charlie. Desperate, Ish cuts a breach in the bridge barrier large enough to fit a bicycle and himself. He can now at last cross the bridge and arrive at the large, vegetated metropolis. After breaking a few doors on his way to the hospital, he discovers a ton of medication. He sees Charlie once more during his hunt, and his guilt still consumes him. Ish makes the decision to pause at the chapel and pray to God to take him rather than Joey. Heather tells the others about her journey at the residence. Rafe and she drove north but couldn't find anyone. They saw the beach and marveled at its beauty, but the villages were run down and decaying. One day, they noticed a building marked with numerals and an arrow. They never took them anywhere, but when they began to follow them, they saw the identical arrows painted on trees, rocks, and other buildings. They ultimately made the decision to spend a few days atop a mountain. Abruptly, a strange man emerged from the woods, and they heard a disturbance. The man reappeared and seized Rafe from behind as the couple made their way back to their tent. When Rafe attempted to resist, the man stabbed him with a knife in retaliation. He was instantly killed when a vengeful Heather flung an axe at him. Rafe also hardly had time to say goodbye before passing away. Heather's car broke down after she buried him, so she began walking home. Jean resumes drinking after hearing all of this. In an attempt to give Joey his immunity, Ish immediately begins preparing for a blood transfusion after his return. Heather soothes him right away and cautions him against acting hastily. She then instructs her to visit Molly, who has developed a novel medication derived from yew trees. Joey is picked up by Ish and taken to Molly, who informs him that the medication might not start working for a few days. Ish offers Joey a chilly bath because he has a fever. Everyone is beginning to feel better after a few days. Molly clarifies that this is a weaker variant of the original virus, which is why she can only treat it. As this is going on, Corey asks Heather to describe the man who killed Rafe and discovers it was Silas. Sadly, the medication doesn't help Joey, who passes away in his bed after saying his last goodbyes to his parents. Ish doesn't handle it well and quickly leaves the house, disregarding the worries of his family. He covers up the sign that Emma painted years ago. Then, in a fit of rage, he walks to the library and begins hurling and trashing the books. They have a little burial at the house and bury Joey along with a few other persons who have died from the sickness. Emma later discovers Ish still at the library, holding a match. He still has other kids and friends to live for, she reminds him, but it was all gone before Joey. He is persuaded to move back into the house by this, but he still lacks life skills. A few days later, Ish hikes and discovers a stunning view of the flawless sunrise, illustrating the state of the globe. He tells the children he made a mistake when he returns. Although they now live in a different location, he has been attempting to teach them lessons from the past. Ish declares that since the world is now their teacher, they no longer need him to teach them. Ish eventually coerces himself into Joey's room a year later. He finds Joey's diary while organizing all the stuff that aren't being used. Despite Ish's disapproval, the child had wanted to meet more people and had begun drawing a schematic for a radio with an antenna of its own. Ish informs the others that they have a new project to collaborate on in order to honor his son's legacy. The radio is eventually completed, and the antenna is mounted atop the home. Although the machine is operational, no one is responding at the moment. Ish tries every frequency he can think of during the day in the hopes that someone will ultimately connect. Emma persuades him to take a break one afternoon, and they join the others in a baseball game they're playing using improvised household items. Although they have a great time, Heather can't help but wonder why there are so many numbers in a baseball game. According to Ish, everyone was obsessed with numbers, measuring, and ranking everything in the ancient world. After hearing this, Ish recognizes that the numbers with the arrow are a frequency, and Heather remembers them. Hurrying to the radio, the group attempts to reach Heather's numbers. They wait a few minutes before they receive a response. Less than 100 miles away, in what was once a state park, is a hamlet of 77 people. Ish's organization extends an invitation to these survivors to become part of their community following some debate. An elderly Ish gives his hammer to Heather's eldest son 50 years after the pandemic started. Ish informs him that his final lesson is that although people come and go, the planet never dies. Make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification to watch more interesting videos like this. Thanks for watching.